couple of things dealing with insurance, licensing. One of the big issues that's come up is people riding on permits. And I know this, we all know somebody that's been riding on permits for a very, very long time. Just renew it year after year, never get the endorsement. Some states are actually looking at the number of times that you can renew a permit so that people are forced to take either the rider education course and the skill waiver or complete the state skill evaluation and get their endorsement on their license. These are the kinds of things we're seeing coming up in other states. Lighting, lemon law. Does the state of Indiana have lemon law to include motorcycles? Okay, some states do. The good news is some states do. The bad news is most states consider motorcycles recreational vehicles, and as such, recreational vehicles are not covered by lemon law. But again, some states do cover them. Safety and Awareness Month, all the states that issued joint resolutions, House and Senate. What's the advantage? What's the rationale for doing that besides raising awareness in the motoring public? It's creating a relationship with your state legislators. When you're down there lobbying on behalf of motorcycle safety and awareness, you're building relationships. And at the State House, I hope Jay will back me up on this, relationships are what gets things done. You go in, you give your word, they expect you to follow through. That's how relationships are built. It's based on your integrity and your word. And obviously you guys are doing something right to get that tax revoked on all motorcyclists. You obviously are doing something very right. Quickly, and to wrap this up, noise. Noise is a big issue. Excessive sound, off-highway and on-highway is a big issue. How many of you remember the situation late last year in Delray Beach, Florida? Delray Beach, Florida said, we got a problem. Motorcycles in the downtown are disturbing restaurant patrons. And the mayor said, there's a simple solution. We'll just ban all motorcycles from that roadway in downtown Delray Beach. I think the Florida riding community was a little upset, to say the least. They approached the city council and on 2 meetings got not only them to back that out, but they got the city to agree, let's go down and take a look and see what's really going on here. And interestingly enough, when the chief of police and several ABATE Florida members and some other riders and a couple of attorneys were down there taking sound level readings, the noisiest vehicle that came through the downtown restaurant district was not a motorcycle. It was a car. So what it said is, yeah, we have a noise problem, but it's not a motorcycle problem. It is a noise problem. And so the things that get passed at a local level can domino. If you let that go, and Delray Beach says, okay, no motorcycles between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. on the street, it emboldens other communities. And they will do it because they watch what other communities do as well. So noise is a significant issue we're dealing with. Registration plates, reflective vests. If you want to read something funny, go read this Connecticut legislation about reflective vests. This was really strange, and it gets the foot in the door to mandated rider apparel. This was kind of scary, a little bit funny, but kind of scary. Rider education, a lot of things going on. The big thing for rider education is funding. For those states who have fee mechanisms to collect from the riding community to pay for rider education, some of those programs have been rated. They tried it in Ohio 2 years ago. They've tried it in other states and have succeeded. Legislatively, be very careful. If anything is in there dealing with your rider education fund and proposes a change to your funding mechanism, it should set off a lot of red flags and alerts. This is something you really need to protect. And it's happening in all the states because budgets are a big issue. Right-of-way, careless and reckless operation, I've already talked about that. Those are the states that looked at it this year. There were a lot of states that had proposals this year or this session. Again, Tennessee and Maryland were the only ones that passed. Stunt driving. I know nobody in this room does that, and I kind of wish I could and had the skill level that some of them do. But it's just very tough for a lot of us to get our motorcycle's front wheel off the ground. But some folks are very good at it based on what they ride in their youth. They're athletes. But the place to do that is not on public roadways. It's getting a lot of law enforcement scrutiny and by implication, the legislature. Be very careful when this kind of legislation comes out and say, yeah, I'm all for keeping those sport bike riders on 2 wheels on the road. Because if you read some of the legislation, it says that your rear end has to be on the seat at all times. And I don't know about you, but when I, on a long trip, stand up and stretch, if I'm in a state and they want to enforce the provision in there, and my butt's not on the seat, technically I'm stunt riding. Or taking a hand off the handlebar. Both hands on the handlebars at all times. Well, sorry, I can't wave and have both hands on the handlebar at the same time. Or I can't wipe my visor off. I can't do what I need to do. Be very careful when these kinds of bills come into the state. If anybody proposes it, look very carefully at what it says. Traffic offenses, again, maybe not directly related to motorcycles, but there's a tangential effect. The last one that I've got here is traffic actuated signals. You know what that is? Pull up to a light. Sit, wait. Okay, now what? Okay, there's a cop hiding in the bush. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the far left lane. This thing is not going to change. There's nobody behind me to wave up to get him in the area where the coil is buried. What do? Do I go through the light? Do I get off the bike and go push the button at the pole like some people have said? I said, I think you, sir, have been drinking, not me, when you make those kinds of suggestions. This is an issue that came up big time in Ohio because a legislator called us and said, would you draft a bill to address this issue in Ohio? I said, with pleasure. Well, we had a sit-down meeting with the Department of Transportation, Department of Public Safety, and the State Highway Patrol. And guess where all three of those groups were? We adamantly opposed this legislation. And then we said, okay, fine, fix the problem. There's 8,000 of these things in the state of Ohio. 7,750 of them don't recognize motorcycles. Well, we don't believe that. Fine. I'm going to pick 3 intersections, come out with me. And I went out on the bike on October 14th. The 3 intersections we chose, I had emailed and people said this one doesn't work. So I knew ahead of time they didn't recognize motorcycles. And with 4 people from the DOT there, I said, okay, I'm in an orange vest, no police escort, out in the lanes of traffic, getting these things to try to recognize the bike. And they wouldn't recognize the bike. And the DOT people are scratching their heads and they're making adjustments. And finally the arrow comes on. They changed the sensitivity. And it worked. And that was to prove a point that many of these things are put in and don't consider motorcyclists and bicyclists in the first place. But if you contact them and they're willing to come out, they can tune these things. So maybe now that we've got 3 of them out of 8,000 tuned, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope. Tolls, a big issue. We hear constantly that motorcycles, and particularly motorcycles pulling trailers, are charged the same as a truck pulling a trailer. I don't have to tell you anything new. It's not fair. And many of the toll administration authorities that used to have a special class for motorcycles have done away with them because, why? Money. Revenue. Money. Very, very scary. If you can fight these things legislatively, that's one way. You may have to go the administrative route, and I know you can certainly talk about that at another time. Let me conclude by saying laws are like sausages. It's better not to see them being made. Any questions? Thank you for your time. Jay, thank you for the invitation.